working again.
They got you when they put the camera on you? We're going to be nice to each other, aren't we, Jack?
Good morning. Once upon a time, an NDP government was elected in British Columbia. And with great public approval, they brought in a compulsory, monopolistic insurance corporation of British Columbia. They wiped out the private companies. They made no bones about it at all. And then as things happened in political circles, they were defeated. And the free enterprisers' social credit got in. They promised to open wide the doors, or as wide as possible, to free enterprise. And then they changed their minds. And on the face of it now, we're back to a good, monopolistic ICBC system of insurance coverage in British Columbia, and many people like that. This morning, we're going to explore with Robbie Sherrell, the top man in ICBC, what they're going to do to us now. Over the next 5 years, they're going to bring in unisex insurance. No discrimination for age, sex, marital status, or territories. It is, in fact, a, should I say now, we'll ask Robbie anyway, an untried revolution that is being wrought in British Columbia. And while it might look good on paper, who knows at this stage how it's going to operate? That and other aspects of public concerns about ICBC with Robbie Sherrell after this break. First of all, I must say, before I start my interview with Robbie Sherrell of ICBC, that you are not a politician.
That's right.
You are an employee of the corporation.
That's right.
And you must carry out their political desires.
That's not exactly right.
Oh, come now, Mr. Sherrell. It was a political decision to wipe out on the face of it age, sex, discrimination, and territorial inequalities in Insurance Corporation of British Columbia. Surely you will concede that.
That's right.
So you carry out the wishes of your political masters.
Well, Jack, I don't think that's any different than anyone else. When the government passes a law, whatever it is, we all obey the law until we can get it changed if the law is not right. This one happens to be a good one and one that we would enjoy carrying out.
And one which you endorsed.
Absolutely.
And willingly sought, you might say.
Well, I think to willingly seek it, a lot of us would enjoy a little bit of complacency at times, and I've spent 20 years learning about a different approach, and I think you have to back up and take a look at, well, is that approach still fitting the community in which we live? I think it needed to be changed. Before we talk about
fundamental auto insurance rating, will you concede to me, as a highly experienced free enterprise insurance executive of many years, that the conditions laid down now by the government under Bill 33 make it virtually impossible for competition to exist even on the optional levels in British Columbia?
No, I will not concede that.
Why won't you give them all the figures they want so they can work out a rate of their own?
Jack, come on. It's not figures. It's people and insurance and cars. That's all it is. Everybody knows how many cars there are in British Columbia. Everybody knows how many people there are in British Columbia. All you have to do is to address the commission that's been given to the whole industry.
Are you telling me that if you had been on the other side of the fence for, say, Royal Insurance, that you could have come up with, by your deadline, a 5-year phase-in program which would enable you to compete with a government monopoly?
Exactly.
You say that?
Certainly.
Without fear of, without hesitation even?
Jack, look.
I mean, really, let's get down
Jack,
to basics.
All right, look, Jack, nothing is easy. Your job isn't easy, my job isn't easy, anyone else's
I don't have
isn't
to
easy.
handle taxpayers' money.
Well, I know, that's true. But all you have to do is to say, look, this thing is inequitable. This thing is not equitable. If it isn't equitable, the insurance industry should address it. That's what they want to do. The industry should be preserved, and it should be preserved by those who participate in it. It happens to be insurance companies.
What does that mean?
That simply means that if you're going to have insurance, the insurance industry should address the needs of the public, demonstrated. End of story.
Understand me, Mr. Sherrell. I've made my position clear. I was one of those who fought and nagged the bad treatment of the public by the private insurers in British Columbia for many years. But you, for instance, as head of ICBC, have available to you, subject to your board of directors, a rate stabilization fund of $65 million. Now, are you telling me that private industry, without such a rate stabilization fund, could come up with a similar scheme?
Jack.
It's a simple question.
Yes.
Without that $60 million.
Jack, every insurance company in the world that operates with a solvency margin of somewhere between 20 and 30%. ICBC has no solvency margin. Hang on a minute. Hang on.
What's your rate stabilization
Hang on a
fund?
minute. They have no solvency margin as such. Now, the rate stabilization fund represents about 10%. So you could say, okay, that's our solvency margin. It's still less than what other companies have. The problem comes that all of that goes back to the shareholders on an annual basis. And I don't say that's wrong. I think that's the way it should be. But the point is, for the subsidy of the bridging across to make this plan work, it costs the corporation, because we have 99% of all the business in BC, compulsory and optional.
Right.
Because we have that, we're talking about $55 million. The private companies have about $13 million, so they're looking at about $200,000 or maybe $300,000. Now you say the private companies can't raise that among themselves to make this thing work. Maybe they choose another approach. We chose an approach that was consumer-oriented, so we did not have, we could bridge across, make it self-sustaining.
But, I mean, surely, to goodness, the only way the ICBC can really operate on the rules it lays down with the monies available to it on the compulsory funds is as a monopoly. That's all I want you to concede.
Jack, I don't believe that you have to have a monopoly to have compulsory insurance.
Okay, let's answer this question. How much money, well, can you talk about surpluses? You don't talk about profits, right?
Right.
What was your surplus last year in your compulsory coverage section of your plan?
Well, there was no surplus in the compulsory part in and of itself.
Did you make or lose money?
The whole company made $6 million.
Did you make or lose money on your optional coverage?
We made money on our optional coverage, yes.
Can you explain, therefore, with your knowledge and what you know of the industry, why private insurance chose to walk away from its tiny share of your $150 million optional coverage?
Well, Jack, I'm not sure I can explain that, but let me give you some of the facts and then you can put them together. What happens in ICBC is we give 93 cents on the premium dollar back to our insureds. Historically, wherever else, look at any annual report or what have you that's published, the private companies give somewhere around 70 cents back on the dollar.
Why is that?
Because you have overhead, you see our expense is 17 cents on the dollar. All right?
That's 83 leaves.
Okay, 17 cents on the dollar. We give 93 cents back. That's 110% of our dollar, right? You say you can't do that.
Doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
No sense.
Investment income gives us almost 11%.
Well, that's part of your dollar.
No, you don't give me investment income. You give me a premium dollar. I put it to
In other
work
words,
for
you make interest on the money I have to pay to you in advance for my coverage.
before I pay it for the claim.
Fair enough. The fact is, of course, that the reason that you have this big advantage, and I don't want to belabor this point, but
Yes.
I want to make it quite clear. I want to see the monopoly anyway, providing you people are kept in order and don't start to be chintzy a la private insurance with the public.
Jack, with you around, we've got no problem.
We're beginning to have doubts about some of your methods of operation. But of course, the private companies have to give back 30 cents on the dollar profit and overhead.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Now, what about fair? Anything else I want to ask you on that?
Well, I want to say just one word on three issues that have to do with competition and anyone working. There are three things, Jack, we do in the insurance corporation. One is service. We try to give the best service on the premium side and make it simple for you to renew. Secondly, when you have a claim, we want to make it very simple for you to come in and get good attention. Thirdly, we have the cost effect of 17 cents on the dollar compared to others that are 30 plus. And the fourth issue is we give 93 cents this past year back on the premium dollar.
There is one thing. I want to apologize to private insurance companies for one little thing. There is one thing I like very much about the optional coverage of a private company. I get a different adjuster than yours, don't I? In other words, it's not the one bleeding ICBC adjuster who's going as they're going nowadays, 50-50, you're both to blame, you'll both have to pay the penalty.
Hang on, Jack, you're not going to get by with that. There's two things I want to say about the ICBC adjuster. The ICBC adjuster, and one of the biggest problems I have in dealing with them, is they get out and they do a super job on all of the things that they do, and they slip maybe on 1 out of 1,000, in a sense, and slip from the standpoint of a perception, and that's the thing you talk about in what? They're out there handling 1,500 claims a day.
I don't care about the workload. They're well paid.
Well,
it's your efficiency that's our concern, not their workload.
That's exactly right. I'm trying to tell you about the efficiency. They handle 1,500 claims a day out there.
Oh, all of them, not one of them.
Well, no.
I misunderstood you. We'll come back to that later, though, because the role of the adjuster will be absolutely vital when you come to your unisex or your fare system, won't it? Because
Jack, it's vital today.
You are changing under fare from a reward system to a punishment system, correct?
No.
How would you describe it?
All right. What I'm saying is...
the present system is a reward system.
Jack, our present system today says that everybody will pay, let me just use figures. Everybody will pay $200 for your premium, say. You pay $200.
No,
hang on a minute.
You're only complicating it. I put it quite simply to you. At the present moment, we pay a rated premium with our peer group, right? And
That's
if we
exactly
don't
right.
have accidents, we get safe vehicle discounts.
That's right.
And if we don't get points, our license doesn't cost us any more.
Yeah.
We are going to a system where we're going to be flat rated, correct? Within the 5 years.
I have to show you
Just a
something.
minute.
I have to show you something.
Don't
Yes.
show me that yet. 5 years. And if I make a mistake, if an adjuster says I'm partly to blame, wham, you crack me.
Jack, I can respond to that very easily right here.
Is it not a simple question? In future, under the full fare system, I will be flat rated, and when the adjuster says, Webster, you're 25% to blame, I'm going to be billed $300.
That's right.
After the break. Webster, don't shout at your guest. He's a perfectly nice guy, but it's very difficult to understand Robbie Sherrell. When he wants to show you all kinds of diagrams and figures and whatnot, I want to get the basics. Do you concede, Mr. Sherrell? You've been here 2 years now, and you know how some of us in the media operate with you. Do you concede that your new 5-year phase-in, hell of a long time to phase in, is an untried revolution?
That's correct.
Is it, in fact, without discrimination? Well, first of all, basic question. Don't be so obnoxious, Webster. When will age, sex, and marital status be removed from the insurance premiums?
Fully removed on March 1st, 1981.
Who are the lucky ones or the unlucky ones who are, first of all, affected by the removal of discrimination on age, sex, and marital status?
May I show you?
Yes.
All right.
If it's legible.
I hope it's legible, and I hope the camera can pick this up, Jack.
I don't think it can now.
Here's a specific case.
Have you got a spare copy of that?
No, I just have that.
You've only got the one
if you can
copy.
put it on, I'll look up here somewhere and try to see it. But
should we put it on a board?
Hold it to the one. All right.
Okay, I'll hold it.
All right. Good.
Can't read it.
Well, we're getting close. Now we're getting there. Yes, now we can read it. Here is our current day scheme, Jack. And here's an example in Vancouver, for instance, of someone who has $500,000 liability coverage, $300 collision deductible, in other words, full coverage with deductibles and what? Here are our rating schemes. The under 25 single male pays the highest rate. The rate on that one is $986. The rate.
With an accident?
No, yeah.
That's without the safe vehicle discount.
Right. If he gets the full 3-year, 32.5% discount, then he pays $666. Then you drop all the way down through, you look at business use. With accidents, it's $480. Without accidents, it's $324. You look at the 25 to 29 single male, and it progressively goes down. The whole scheme of today says it's peer groups. The under 25 single male has more accidents than any of the others, so they pay more. And that's true, and that's real. Now, as you go down through there, it begins to minimize. The adult class, which we show for pleasure only, the rate with accidents is $280. The discounted 32.5% is $189.
But that's the present scheme you're talking about.
That's a present.
I
Now,
know about
all
that
right,
scheme.
All right, now I want to show you the major inequity that is completely removed by FAIR. For example, the adult that pays $280 can have 1 accident, 20 accidents, as many, can call upon the fund, whatever, can be an awful driver.
Except for the points premiums.
Well, except for the points, penalty points, but can call on the fund for all they want at $280. Okay, that under 25 single male who has never had an accident, always drove correctly, done everything right, pays $666. Jack, that isn't fair because the test should be driving. What we do is collapse this side down and put everyone at a low discounted rate. Then when they have an accident, they have to pay an accident premium.
On the face of it, it looks fair and good. But
Okay.
the big question, Mr. Sherrell, is can you make it work? Now,
The big answer, Mr. Webster, is most definitely.
but it will be how many years before we know?
Well, you know.
5,
Yeah.
won't it?
Yes, before
5
before
years.
it's fully implemented,
My
yes.
God, why 5 years? Why not just go ahead with it right now and make it simple? You're going to drive us all crazy with your various discriminations until it's fully in effect.
Jack, certain people said when we tried to move from an annual renewal basis where 1,600,000 came in on the first day of March to renew to a staggering, everybody said, why don't you just do it today? We're phasing into that one. Let me tell you why. Because there's not $1 of your money or mine that's spent for that phase-in. Because we did it in a way, it didn't cost anything extra. You still go to the agent the same way you always did. We now have 400,000 people moved into other pieces in the year.
That's merely administration. Don't tell me your administrative
Administration means cost to your pocket. I'm
If
paid
this
not to
scheme-
hit your pocket.
If the scheme is as good as you say it is, and if there is this vicious discrimination against the under-25s, why not bring it in? Because you have no actuarial tables in which you can say it would be a success in 1 year.
Well, Jack,
Am I not right?
Well, the leveling, to put the whole thing in, means something like in excess of 5 million changes in the whole of the system.
Well, no, it's quite simple.
Oh, it isn't quite
You merely
simple.
say you're alive, you've got a license, this is your rate. When you have an accident, we'll penalize you. And you see how much money you get in.
Well, well, that may be.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm looking at it as a layman. Many people think that FAIR is going to, as of March next year, new premiums. Some of us won't have any change.
That's right.
Except that we'll go up the annual inflation
Whatever,
index,
yeah.
won't we?
That's right.
We will go up.
Well, you very well may, yes.
All right. At the end of 5 years, and many of you may not be alive, including me, will there be any discrimination in the system, or will it be a true, virginal, flat-rate, non-discriminatory scheme?
No, there'll probably be some discrimination.
Surely not. That's
Surely
against
not.
today's thinking.
Look, Jack, we're retaining use of the vehicle differences
Businessmen will be discriminated against.
to and from work.
Over 65s will be discriminated in favor
Well, yes.
because it's a political decision.
Well, it's more than that, Jack. Every piece of industry addresses people 65 and over. And the older you and I get, I'm kind of glad they do
We've got
that.
to
So
be
we
kind-
shouldn't be any different.
We should be kind to them in a discriminatory manner.
Yes.
That's right. So there will be discrimination. Tell you what we'll do now. I won't take the break yet. I've got some
Jack,
of the spleen out of my system, but
I know
want
you
to.
have. I still have a
Not
little
all
in
of it.
mind.
Not
I still
all
have
of
a
it.
little in mind.
Yeah.
The business use and the to and from work and the adult classes that will remain in a sense, down the line we want to look at that too, because the logic should say, what difference does it make if you drive the car to and from work if you do it correctly and don't have accidents?
I'm going to give you a chance to talk about FAIR. Don't misunstand me.
Oh, good.
I will give
I've
you
been
a
wanting
chance,
that, Jack.
providing you'll stay away from hyperbole and just give us facts. But is it correct, and I don't know the answer to this question, I know you will answer it truthfully, that your magnificent organization recently issued to insurance agents magnifying glasses?
Yeah, they issue them to me.
Have you given to agents magnifying glasses? Because when you say yes, I'm going to ask why.
Yes.
Why?
Hey, he did ask why.
ICBC President Robbie Sherrell today confirmed that magnifying glasses have been dished
Are
out
needed
to
by
all
the agents.
insurance
Yeah,
agents.
yeah.
Is this because they are decrepit and have bad eyesight?
No, I don't think so,
What
Jack.
is the reason, Mr. Sherrell?
We send out a package to the agent that shows all of the accounts that are on the books and so on of people who owe us money.
You mean
That's
bad
to start
debts?
with. Bad debts. We show what that is.
It's called the Blue Book.
Well, it's called the Blue Book, yes. Jack, to put that thing up, it would be that thick, and the cost of the printing and so on to do it is much more of mailing and so on. We've got that down to where we saved 300% in just handling cost by spending $1.
You're away on me again. That Blue Book contains how much in bad debts of people who have not paid their premiums?
About $25 million.
Oh my God, 25 million. Mm-hmm. Why haven't you collected that $25 million?
Well, for one reason, we have a premium finance plan that's working all the time.
You
all
mean
the
to say
time.
that there are people in British Columbia who owe me, my company, your company, $25 million and
That's
are
exactly
driving
right.
around without proper coverage?
No, they have the coverage. They owe $25 million.
They've got the coverage, but they haven't paid for it.
Now, but listen now, hang on a minute. When you have a checkbook and you put $1 in and you pay $1 out, that's exactly what this is. People are paying on the back side, people are coming on the front side.
We're carrying
in the
$25
business.
million.
Right now we
You're
are,
losing
yes.
$2.5 million a year in premium income to support my plan, in premium interest, in earned interest.
Well, most of those are interest-bearing accounts anyway, so we get the interest.
And so, to finish my little light piece, and then we'll get down
And
to
most of
fair.
those are 18% interest and not the 11 we get
If
on
you can
investment.
catch them.
Oh, we're not doing a bad
So
job.
the magnifying glass is to enable the insurance agents to look down the list for Webster, John Edgar, Hunza,
Jack, we were
$126.
we were a little worried about your rating, and we wanted to give you something to talk about.
That's hysterically funny. And
No, I know.
I think
I know.
our news department will probably follow that up with a collection of insurance agents with the free ICBC magnifying
Yes,
glasses.
I think
It's not
it's true.
true that you don't give anything away. You give magnifying glasses away to agents to check your bad debts.
That's right.
After this break.
That's right.
Fair. Fundamental auto insurance rates. Do go ahead, Mr. Sherrell.
Well, I think there's a couple of things, Jack, I'd like to put in. When I was on your show before, it was about April or May of this year, and we had people calling in and so on, which went along with the things that we had, such as when I've got a car with a 32.5% discount, I buy a second car. Why is it that I can't get the same 32.5% discount? And I told you then that by about September, we would fix that. But the program had been on an earning basis, that you had to earn the first year, the second year, the third year, wherever you are.
Reward.
But there were lots of inequities in it. And more importantly, the consumer out there felt that should be changed. September the 1st, this year, we've changed that. So now it's on the driving record alone. The car comes in, it comes in at a full 32.5% discount. Whether it's a second car, a new person into the province, a case like we had where a person was in the armed forces for a period of time, came back. You know, so we fixed that one. Now what I want to say to you on
That's
fair.
an amendment to the present scheme.
To the present scheme.
Nothing to do with fair.
No, but Jack, what I'm trying to say, there's going to be certain things I have to do in this 2, 3, 4, 5 year
That's
period to keep abreast of those changes that need to occur.
That will stay there. From
That
now
will
on,
stay
there will
there,
be no. Oh, from now on, there will be no discount, but there will be no safe vehicle. There will be no discount under fair.
Well,
Can't be.
Well, but there's no reason to be, Jack. I showed you this chart.
No.
With everybody coming down to the discounted 32.5% rate anyway, there's no reason for the discount.
What you're telling me, therefore, is that the basic premium next year is going to be the discounted rate adjusted for inflation.
No, next year we only come part of the way of the leveling down. The second year, you're right, it comes down. It takes 2 years to do that.
It'll be based on this year's discounted rate plus allowance for
That's
inflation,
right.
which even you can't escape.
Yeah, the safe driving vehicle
I've
discount
got that.
stays
Okay.
into effect for 3 years in reality.
Well, let me take you over the next one. I want you to explain it. The initial story gave all kinds of 5-year, $20 licenses on a leaked document to Jess Odom. What is happening under the fair and when to our driver's licenses? That's important.
Okay, the answer is nothing.
5-year license.
Right, Jack, we would like to see, it would help us, simply from a collection point of view, if it was like a 2-year driver's license. It would help us. But as far as the cost of the driver's license and what, ICBC has nothing to do with that. That's the Motor Vehicle Division.
Nothing to do with it, but greatly concerned with it.
Well, sure, that's right. That's exactly right.
But people should disabuse of themselves of, at the moment, any premium on the license other than the license
There is
fee.
absolutely no truth in anything to do with the license as such under fair.
Good thing to clear away. What about points? Under fair.
Yeah. Jack, the prevailing attitude in the corporation is the points should not have anything to do with the insurance corporation. But the point is there's about $10 or $11 million of income that comes into the corporation to help. And I can't replace that income yet because that's on the compulsory monopoly side. And I don't know how to, I don't want to increase rates to do that because then you'd say, well, where would it go? So right now we're still keeping it in until we find a way to divest ourselves of it.
So therefore, under fair, we're going to be punished twofold if we're bad drivers. At the moment, points, you will still square the number of points 6 and over. Mm-hmm. And you will also pay over 3 years, your $300 penalty provision.
Jack, that is
in a blameworthy accident.
Yeah, but that isn't a lot different than today. In a blameworthy accident today, you lose your discount. You lose your discount. If you had a 32.5% discount,
Yeah.
you lose it. The next year, you still don't get the 32.5. You only get 15.
But to understand that, people must know that there will be a flat premium, and that if there is an accident, 1, they will get points at the moment,
Yep.
and 2, they'll be billed each of 3 years for $100 per year per accident.
That's right. That's on the compulsory mandatory side.
Right.
The other point that was made during the break, and I think it's very important, there's been a lot of criticisms of our current program, not only ours, but the industry, in that we pay too much attention to the vehicle owner as such. And it's the driver. And I've had letters and so on to say that, the car doesn't drive itself, for example. What we're doing in the fair is saying, okay, the owner must pay the basic rate, whatever that is. But if I'm driving your car, Jack, and I'm in a blameworthy accident, the $300 belongs to me as the driver. I have to pay it, not the owner. So his base rate is unchanged as a result.
Providing that person has a policy.
Well,
He must have a
providing he has a valid BC driver's license, that's all.
I see.
That's all.
But he won't be billed $300, will he?
The driver will be billed $300.
Even if he doesn't own a car.
That's right. There are people driving today that don't own cars, and they're smashing them up, and there's no penalty except the penalty points. We don't believe that's fair.
Oh, no, that's good. If you drive somebody else's car, which you do not own, with their permission and with a valid license, or without their permission, you'll still get the $300 bill over 3 years.
That's correct.
That's interesting. Now, age, sex, and marital status. We'll accept that this is a non-discriminatory plan on the face of it.
Yes?
That's quite simple. Age, sex, and marital status. When will that be applied to our ICBC premiums?
Okay, it starts March 1 next year. March 1 next year, we began to bring those rates closer to that baseline. It takes us 2 years, Jack, to make it the whole way to the baseline.
That's sheer administrative problems.
Well, it's a lot of it. It's a lot of it. Because, you see, there, we're only talking about 215,000 people. And if we're not careful, we get the whole spectrum coming in at one time.
What do you mean only
for not to do-
215,000 people? I don't understand that.
Those that the rates are reduced because, now, we're talking principally about the under 25 single male, the 25 to 29, and the female to start with, because they're the highest rated.
I get it.
So they
Give me that
start
again.
down.
Under 25 single male.
Under 25 single male, 25 to 29 single male, the under 25 single male that just uses the car on occasion, and the under 25 married male.
You're going to bring them down and meld them closer to the level
That's
of
right.
the average driver
That's
who is
right.
what category?
Right now, the one example I gave you was 189 accident-free, 280 with accident, and we get to 286
I don't con me.
accident-free.
Mr. Sherrell, are you telling me that your
He only
aim...
says Sherrell when he doesn't like me.
That's right, when I'm getting angry.
Okay.
Are you telling me that as you come down to your unisex rate, which I think is a good way to describe it, that you're going to bring it down to the lowest level of pleasure only?
That's right.
And
Eventually, I'd like to have them all there, Jack,
But there is...
which is more than unisex.
Unisex is a good name for it. Pleasure only, but I will, of course, be discriminated against if I am a businessman who drives a large number of miles.
Yeah, we're retaining the use of the vehicle classification.
So it'll be pleasure only plus use of vehicle plus what else?
It'll be 3 classes of use.
Give me them.
Business use, to and from work, and then pleasure. Those are the 3 classifications.
So it'll just be pleasure plus either one of these 2 things, plus the penalty for accidents.
That's right.
Let me see if I got the Robbie baby right. Over the next 2 years, your intent and aim, with the assistance of your de facto monopoly, is to bring down basic insurance premiums to the level of pleasure only, plus an additional sum of money for business or to and from work.
Correct.
That's correct. That'll be over 2 years.
Yes.
And after that, whether you're an Indian in a reserve at a house sit, a 91-year-old man who drives 3 miles a year in Victoria, I understand it's full of 91-year-old people, or somebody in Prince George with its highly damaging transient population and its bad accident rate, despite the great success of Carnage, by the way, or in Vancouver, we will all be on the same territory rate, one territory rate for British Columbia. You'll wipe out territorial rates.
Yes, as long as you drive safely. The only test, Jack, is how you drive, not who you are, what you are, where you live, whether you smoke or don't smoke, or whether you're left-handed or right-handed. It's simply how you drive.
Now, that's the whole thing covered then, isn't it? No more complications, are there?
I wouldn't think so. I hope not.
I'm just looking at that just for the moment, just to get my mind in gear. Okay, now let's talk about the difficulties. How the devil? Oh, when I'm a 31-year-old driver who drinks a little bit, we'll say, and I get involved in 1, 2, 3 accidents a year, will I be charged a separate $100 for each accident?
You'll be charged $300 for every blameworthy accident.
Could you tell me how many times in the past year your adjusters have said the blame is 50-50?
I would sure like to do that,
Surely
because
it's on
there's
your
a terrible
computer.
misconception, Jack.
I
Look,
have the impression that where it's an accident, it's 50-50. And if it's under this new scheme with a 50-50 accident, and we'll just draw figures out of the sky, and we'll say there's $110 damage to each car, right? And it's 50-50
I wish it said
accident.
$90.
Why 90? No, I know.
I'll waive it then, see.
I'm going to $110. You will collect for that accident from these 2 drivers $600 over the next 3 years.
That's correct.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. So therefore, what you're going to do is you're going to avoid many claims by making frightened people scurry to get a quick assessment and pay for their own repairs.
Jack, stop right there just a minute. First of all, it is not proper in equity to be reasonable with the dollar to assess on the basis of damages. Let me tell you why. Two cars hitting exactly the same do not always cause the same damage. In some cases, there's a serious injury. In some cases, there's no injury. And it's the same kind of impact. You hit a pedestrian today going 15 miles an hour and you knock them down, they get up and walk away. Same knockdown makes the person a paraplegic. How they fall, how they hit. You can't control the damage, but you can control how you drive. It's how you drive that determines whether or not you pay.
You've given me that lecture. I put you a very simple thesis that in a minor property damage accident where the blame is assessed 50-50 by your adjuster, you get $600.
That's right.
That's right. Now, furthermore, many a time your adjuster will settle that accident his way, and you won't even know that you've been made blameworthy in an accident and not have a chance to fight it. Is that correct?
No, that is not correct.
Why is it not correct?
All right, let everyone watching hear this. The adjuster will give a notification to you that the investigation is complete and there's been no assessment of liability, there's been an assessment of liability, or whatever the case might be, and you will know that the damage is being assessed against you. Just as we're doing today, we notify you that you're going to lose your safe driving vehicle discount.
At what stage after the accident is settled?
No, you're going back to 75 and 76 and those areas and 77.
Are you telling me now that if I am in an accident today,
yes,
God forbid, that I will get a notification from the adjuster that the assessment is now complete in my accident and I am to blame?
And you will lose your discount, and the answer is yes.
When will I get it?
Well, you'll get it as soon as the claim is investigated, usually within about 30 days.
All
Jack.
right, okay.
We have to investigate it. We have to know.
Agreed. Being one of the awkward squad, I think your adjuster is out of his flipping mind. How do I fight that? Because I don't want to pay $300 because this idiot was smelling of drink and I asked him to produce his license and he didn't produce his license. I called the police and they wouldn't come because there was nobody hurt. Right?
Jack,
how do I fight that?
All right, let's just see how you fight it. Now, I have to do this to make you see what the story is.
You treat me like I was some kind of cretinous idiot.
No, you're beating me up. There's 420,000 claims a year that we had this past year. 120,000 of those we assessed fault in.
Right.
Okay? In that 120,000, 108,000 of those was 100% one way or the other. It wasn't this 25, 75,
I asked
50,
you that
50.
5 minutes ago.
You got onto something and I couldn't answer you. Now I'm answering you.
So there are 12,000 50-50 accidents in the last year.
Yes.
120.
Were they both shared?
Okay, now the simple answer to my simple question, please.
Yeah, but look at that
How do I
relationship.
fight it? How do I fight it?
All right,
I don't care about the other 11,999.
You got 3 ways to fight it.
Right.
One is if you don't like the assessment, you go to the claim manager of that same claim center and say, look, I think your adjuster is not paying attention to the facts. The claim manager looks at it. He does one of 3 things. He says, yes, I agree with him. I don't agree with him. Or maybe it's a compromise. You say, I still don't buy it. We have an appeal procedure where the senior officers of the company set in bank and review the whole case. If there's just one of those that agree with you, the whole case goes your way.
A minority vote will win you.
Will win you. It's just like...
3 of them.
That's right. If you still don't buy that, you always have the courts. If you still don't buy that one.
Would I go to the courts to ask a small debt court to decide whether or not I'm at fault in an accident? No, I would sue somebody for the damage, wouldn't I?
Yes.
Or the deductible.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't like about it, of course, is going to your appeal body. They're all brainwashed ICBC people.
I know, Jack. I don't know an easier way to deal with that.
How many are on
these
that
people-
appeal board? 3.
Yes.
And if one of them says, okay, I think you should be off the hook, you
That's the
go
way
for
it
the
goes.
minority
That's
decision.
exactly
That's
right.
not a bad idea.
And we always give Jack a complete resume back to the individual of the finding and the facts and the rationale for the decision.
As we finish this particular segment, let me remind you that FAIR is going to take 5 years, and that age-sex marital status will take 2 years, and wiping out the territories, which we haven't even talked about, will take 5 years?
Yes.
Well, after the break. one.
But I wish you'd waited another 40 minutes to say it.
Is it not a fact, Mr. Sherrell, that the territory of British Columbia is divided into 6 segments at the moment?
Yes.
And that if I'm lucky enough to live in Victoria, British Columbia, I pay, all things being equal, the lowest premium in BC.
Yes.
And that if I live in Victoria in the future, my premiums are sure going to jump.
Well, they're going up.
Well, they're going up.
Yeah.
Little jump, but
Yes.
some kind of jump.
Yes.
Tell me how and why you're wiping out the territories, which is the classic way peer groups and territorial experience on which automobile insurance has been based for 100 years.
Well, territories, Jack, is no different than age or sex or anything else. All of it is on probability. The probability of a loss, the higher the probability in a particular area, the higher the rate. The lower the probability in a particular area, the lower the rate.
But it's the present system.
That's right. And that's why we have 6 different areas, because they're significantly different that we had 6. Now, under our program, we're saying it doesn't matter what territory you live in as long as you drive correctly. If you have a loss, whether you're in Victoria or anywhere else, you're going to pay the accident premium. Those areas that are now, like Vancouver, which is the highest rate, will pay the highest accident premium. So it'll still equal out. But it'll be those causing the accidents paying the premium, not those who live there necessarily.
Yeah, you got to be careful of how you phrase that.
I know.
You said Vancouver would pay. You mean drivers in Vancouver, due to the larger number of accidents in British Columbia, will pay more $300 penalties in total than any other section of the province?
Most likely correct.
In other words, BC will become, at what stage will it become one territory, and how are you going to phase it in?
5 years from now.
No, but how many? Are you going to wipe them out one at a time, or
No.
2 at a time?
No. What we're doing, Jack, is just compressing from the bottom to the top, compressing down until you reach that level line of all of them.
Yeah, but the territorial discrimination will exist for 5 years
That's
more.
right.
Is that correct?
That's correct. Because we're trying to get it to where there won't be...
In other words, you're
starting
looking for your experience on your reshaped premiums to protect you during the 5 years and build up a stabilization fund so that eventually you can wipe out the territories.
Wait a minute, Jack. There's no income there's no income or deficit to the corporation, because as you're pushing up from the bottom, right, you're increasing premium. Pushing down from the top, you're decreasing it. So it's no plus or minus to us. It's only a plus or minus to the people who live in those areas.
So the good drivers who will benefit most, is this right, will be those who live, say, in Prince George?
Yes.
I mean, broadly speaking.
Yeah, the highest single territory of the 6 is Vancouver, because Prince George is a part of a large territory.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
Prince George as a city in an area is very high.
Yeah, that's right. That's where you made your famous $1.80 speech.
Yes.
Okay, next.
Yes.
Are you being chintzy on settlements?
Well,
Right now, this very day.
Jack, I feel this way. The whole commission of the corporation to every adjuster in the province is to pay what we fairly owe, adding it up and deciding what that is. Because let me tell you, they don't have an axe to grind, Jack, one way or the other. It's simpler and easier for them to overpay your claim than to listen to your badgering. Much easier. Because they don't, first of all, they get the claim settled. They don't worry with you coming back into the shop. These people are trying hard to pay what we rightfully owe.
All right, like the medical profession does with its computers and BC Medical, can you look at the performance of adjusters on their pattern of adjustment and practice and tell whether or not they're giving more or less than you expect them to give?
Yes, we can and do, on an individual basis, on a claim center basis, and on a major loss basis. We do
If I
that.
wanted to be finky this morning, which I feel inclined to be, I could give out advice to anyone involved in anybody other than a serious accident and say to them, as Mr. Sherrell may well agree, if you want to milk them, go to a big-name lawyer. Don't settle with the adjuster. Is that correct?
Well, there's times when that is exactly right, Jack.
For
and
instance-
there's times where that big-name lawyer... you know, we had a case, you never talk about this one, we had a case recently that we felt very badly about. That big-name lawyer we'd offered $40,000. And the Supreme Court said you don't owe anything. Why did you offer $40,000? Came away with zero. They don't talk about those kind. That's not
the old
right.
private insurance syndrome. Where
No,
they had...
and that's not right.
Oh,
We
I
don't
know.
want to do that.
But let me put it another way. If, and I'm being quite serious, if I am in an accident,
Yes.
and it's more than just a phony whiplash, of which I'm sure you have quite a number,
Yes, we do have some.
and there's no way you can catch them either if the person can do
Don't
the right
say
symptoms.
that.
Oh no, I'd forgotten.
No.
You have very good snoops with your telescopic cameras.
That's right.
Do you do much of that?
Well, if we have 30,000 personal injury claims on average a year. 30,000. Of the personal injury claims, we had people to check in the community where a person lives on about 400,000 of those. The total corporation, we use people to check on about 700 claims. About half of those are the type you're describing, where people are really trying to rake us off, if you will.
Swing the lead.
Yes, but the other half, they were absolutely right, and our investigation proved that. And we tried to get in and then pay the claim the way that we should.
The lesson to be learned is that if you have a neck brace on and a large plaster, don't run up and down your back garden playing squash.
Exactly right, Jack.
And that's why
wouldn't
you
help.
snoop with telescopic cameras.
Well, it's
and you
this
make
way.
no apologies for that, do you?
None at all, Jack. This is a fund. You pay me, and everyone pays me to pay what we fairly owe. What we fairly owe. And the way I do that is to have to be sure. There are certain signs that we get in a claim that would indicate that a person is trying to inflate the claim. Certain signs. When we get those signs, then we have to check to be sure we're either right or wrong.
Now,
And try to do that quickly.
I mean, I'm not trying to cause trouble, except deliberately. But if I go
I think
to my,
I know that.
If I go to my big name lawyer, if I don't go to a lawyer, I might get a fair settlement from your adjuster. Let me be the first to concede that. But if I go to a lawyer and I have good medical evidence, or apparently good medical evidence to back my claim, the first thing that will happen is that you'll offer me $50,000 to settle in advance of the judgment, in advance of the hearing. Then you'll come up to $70,000 on the steps of the courthouse. You do that all the time, don't you?
Well, we have done that, Jack, but we don't do that all the time, no.
Why do you do that?
Jack-
If you've got your mind
Yeah.
made up, why increase it on the steps of the courthouse? Merely to save legal fees?
No. It's a very rare instance when we ever change the value of the final settlement of that case. And what we do, more often than not, what we pay into the court is exactly what's given, and we don't even have to pay cost in that case. I'm not saying we should or shouldn't, I'm saying that's the way the law is. And very rarely is the judgment, if you will, ever in excess of what we paid into court.
I know of one case where a man got a substantial judgment. You don't know the details of this case. Very big judgment indeed. And then what happens? Your people come along, lawyer to lawyer, and you say, hey, we'll say it was $250,000. If you'll settle now for 160, we'll give you a check for 160. Otherwise, we're going to appeal the judgment from the Supreme Court. That is, I think that's dirty pool.
First of all, Jack,
I know it's ethical, but I think it's dirty
No,
pool.
hang on a minute. First of all, what you're saying is what somebody has told you. Those kind of negotiations, hang on a minute.
I know that one for sure.
Those kind of negotiations are what? Occur on the basis of here's the revelation of the facts, here's the legal side of it, here's the pros and the cons, because many of those, that's one of the things that's wrong with the court system and wrong with our claim payment system today, is it's the future earning aspect of the individual. We at the corporation believe that what we should get into is that premium dollar coming in should keep that person's station in life, whatever that is. If they happen to be a Jack Webster, they have a particular station in life
Certainly do.
that ought to be protected. If they're a Robbie Sherrell, they have a much lower one.
Yes,
that's
correct.
right.
As
so,
it should be.
So you have to take care of that. But the point is, Jack,
You're talking about arbitration. You're talking about a compensation
I'm
system.
talking about a premium dollar taking care of the insurance indebtedness, period.
We'll come to that again in a moment.
Okay.
But the point I was going to make was that, oh yes, one question, and then we'll go for the break. No, it's a good one. I'll use it after the break.
Okay.
Do you think it's fair, Robbie, that a court will give a decision, say, for $500,000 settlement, and the lawyer walks away with 25 or 30% of that money, we'll take a $250,000 settlement, and the lawyer walks away with $75,000 for his fees. Can you not avoid that kind of unfair, to me, to the victim?
Well, it's very difficult to do it under our present scheme, and that's why I say that we're working on ways to do that. I believe in all the technical professions. I certainly believe in the legal profession, and I think they have a very responsible role to play. But there is a cost-effective remuneration for what they give. And I'm not so sure $75,000 for that effort is cost-effective to you, to me, to the person, to
Am I right
them.
in thinking that if you make an automatic payout in the case of death, what's the automatic payout? 50,000?
No, it's there's the
there's
accident
death
benefits. No, they're pretty low unless you have survivors and so on. Then if the survivors are in and you have a wife and children, then it goes up
Even if a
progressively.
person goes to a lawyer on what is an automatic, reasonable settlement by your people with the claimants, and you have many satisfied claimants, that if that person has made a contingency deal with a lawyer, that they'll get 25% of that amount of money?
If that happened to be the deal, yes.
Is that right?
No, because I think so many of those, you know, it's both ways, Jack. I'm not saying that I don't like the way that we have to administer future earnings and future care of a person. I don't think that's right. You talked about $500,000. Statistics clearly show that at the end of 2 years, 60% of those people that receive those kind of verdicts, the money is gone and they're back on society for care and so on.
Just
and
one
that's
moment.
not good.
I'll ask you that
That's
again.
not good.
Have you any statistics on what happens to the large money awards given to individuals by the courts?
Well, they're not good statistics, Jack, and I want to say that, but the best we have kind of coincides with what Canada publishes and what the U.S. publishes. They're all in the same relationship, and what it says is, in 10 years, all settlements over $100,000 are totally gone, whether it be $100,000 or $10 million, you know, whatever the case might be, they're gone in 10 years. What it also says is that at the end of 2 years, 60% of all of those are broke again.
What you're telling me in my simple English is that 60% of people who get large sum court awards fritter away or otherwise misuse the money in 2 short years.
Well, I can certainly say the money's gone. And then they fall back on society for national health or social security programs or some kind of security program.
That's the strongest argument I've yet had for a system of, as you say, premium dollar paying the proper way of life maintenance for those injured in automobile accidents.
Jack, we think there's we think our FAIR program attaches the rating side and does it correctly from an equity standpoint. Now we have to move out in the next 3 or 4 years working toward the other side of that. And that'll be the closest to a perfect system that you can have.
I happen to agree with you on that, but of course that's a decision which would have to be made perhaps at the urging of you and your board of directors by your political master.
That's exactly right.
Your calls to Robbie Sherrell, ICBC, after this break. That camera, number 2, you're speaking to. Skip the hyperbole, please, Robbie, and just answer the questions. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah, on this business, I've been listening to this morning, and I think there's, he does a pretty good job of making it sound okay, you know. But it's a lot different when you're talking to a great big, you know, institute.
Have you a question?
All right. I just want to say this. Ask him this. How many cars that are written off wind up back on the road?
Good question. How many cars written off wind up back on the road?
Jack,
Sold
I don't know.
back? You don't know?
No.
Too many?
No, I don't think there's very many.
Thank you,
but
sir.
I don't know.
Why is it that in Saskatchewan, which has a similar system, in fact preceded you with this type of system, did it not? April the 1st this year, they forgive one accident. You are not going to forgive any accidents.
That's right.
Why do they forgive it?
Jack, you can do any number of things. You can forgive it. They do it. It's like us waiving $100. They don't waive $100. We happen to believe that's the most equitable way. It's a
In any
choice.
case, they just got flat land and no.
Well, it's a choice.
Go ahead, please.
Number 2, my question is directed to Mr. Sherrell.
Yes?
In this regard, he talks about efficiency in his own ICBC, and he talks about the amount of money that he has invested. Why will not ICBC pay their claims to the auto body dealers? Do they expect us to go broke? Our auto body repairmen have to eat the same as Mr. Sherrell does. He gets paid twice a week, but I wait 6 and 7 and 8 months. Mr. Sherrell, put that in your computer and find out why your dealers are not getting paid after the claim has gone through, and I've checked out 9 out of 20 at random. And the earliest one was 2 months, the furthest was 7 months away, and you expect the auto body dealer to wait to finance you while you have time for this investment? While you have time for this efficiency?
Yeah, let me answer it this way, because what happens in those, we have a batching system to try to deal with the very thing that you're talking about. For instance, if a person comes in, and you know this, and I'll say it to the other listeners, when a person comes into the claim center and the estimate is prepared in part by our estimator and sent to your shop, then as long as it's all clean and it moves through quickly, you send that back and it goes into the batching system, and within the maximum of 30 days you have your check.
Oh, just a minute. He says not. He says wait 7 months.
Hang on.
Say not.
Now, the thing that I would think, and I'll look at your case specifically if you'll identify your name, but what does happen often is there are a few shops where we have difficulty in coming to agreement. As long as we're having problems in coming to agreement, then, we have to resolve that one way or the other.
All right, let's ask him, have you had difficulties in coming to agreements?
We took 9 out of a group of 20. There are 75 claims. We took 9 out of 20 at random.
And had you agreed to the price?
Agreed.
In all cases.
And you had done the job?
Done the job.
And you're waiting 7 months for your check?
Body men to put bread on the plate for their kids, and I've got to wait 5 and 6 months for my money?
Well, I'll certainly look your specific case up, and I'll I'll let Mr. Webster know what the story reveals.
Hold on, chap, and Linda will take your name and number now and give it to Robbie Sherrell.
Yeah.
Questions, please.
Oh, this is to Mr. Sherrell.
Yes?
Adjusters receive any compensation other than a fixed annual salary, and if so, what form does this take?
Well, let's see. You're talking about our present system today if you're injured in an accident?
No, she's asking, do the adjusters get anything other than a fixed annual salary in remuneration?
Oh, absolutely.
And if so, what form does it take?
If you're talking about bonuses or anything of that or anything, the answer is an unequivocal no. I believe in the paper yesterday, and I want to tell you I'm absolutely furious about it. There was a statement that adjusters must be paid bonuses because they chisel people and so on. That's absolutely absurd. The adjusters do just the opposite of that. They get a base salary. Most of those are union people. They get the union benefits, period. End of story. Nothing else.
Only because my daughter's been in an accident, and after 2.5 years, she's been given the runaround terribly. Still not.
Does she have a lawyer?
Yes.
Okay, just a moment. I want to go to Chuck Paulson's.
A friend of yours.
Hold on, I'll take your name and number too. Don't go away. Chuck Paulson said, ICBC denies suggestions. When did you stop being a wife?
I know.
That adjusters are paid a bonus for giving people less than they deserve. You categorically and absolutely say that is not, that any suggestion of bonus is untrue.
Absolutely untrue, a false statement.
But Chuck goes on to say, common sense would indicate that cheap settlements are feathers in the cap of anyone trying to climb the bureaucratic ladder.
Oh.
No comment.
On what basis, Jack? Wait, but there is a comment. What motivation does the adjuster have for that kind of thing? He's saying climbing the bureaucratic hierarchy or what have you.
Ladder.
Or the ladder or whatever you want to say. You know, if he's trying to do that, his cases are going to be more in an adversary relationship than anyone else. And we look at those things. We look at those things from all the claim people and the adjusters, and there is the facts. There are the facts of the complaints in the corporation since way back in early '76, I believe, when our records were good. We have a 2800 line that everybody calls in on if they got a question or a problem. Now, I want to explain what this means.
Can you take that? Comment on number one. The red are serious complaints.
Right.
Yellow are...
the hard, we can't nail them down, Jack, to know where they really belong.
And green are frivolous.
Well, green are we're able to show unequivocally that the complaint was not right. Now, you notice back in '76, we had very serious complaints in here. Magnitudes of, here's one, 3,000 we got in 1 month that were bad complaints. We were getting over 5,000 a month of complaints in total. Right now, here's a piece out here that happened at the end of last year. If you remember, we started Dial a Claim. When we started Dial-A-Claim, we had some problems of clogging up of the telephone lines and getting in. We recorded those as serious complaints because when a customer tries to call us, we want them to be able to get in.
You still got Dial-A-Claim?
Oh, yes, and there it is. Now, we had something like 7 claim complaints in total last month, either from the 28,000 line or so on. What we're trying to do is get those settled out on the front lines where they belong.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, Mr. Webster.
Yes.
I would like to know when a policeman is on duty and he's pursuing somebody and he's involved in an accident and he's responsible for the accident, does that affect his insurance?
He asked the question of you, Jack.
You're the expert.
Yes, okay. Yes, there's a significant thing on driver's points and on accidents that all of us have to keep in mind. Driver's points are for criminal offenses in driving, not insurance, but criminal offenses. They may or may not be related in an accident. For instance, if a person is speeding and involved in an accident, then they're related.
Or if a policeman goes through a red light without proper cause and kills somebody, he should be penalized.
That's right, and he is.
He is. The answer is yes, depending on the circumstances.
That's right.
If the guy's doing a high-speed chase in proper cause and can't avoid the accident, you wouldn't penalize him.
But we have to use the civil rules and so on, Jack, that we apply, not the criminal rules. We have to investigate an accident on the basis of fault or lack of fault.
Not a bad
piece.
answer. Where?
Yes.
Port Hardy, BC, to Robbie Sherrell. You have automobiles in Port Hardy.
How many there is?
No, I'm only making a snide remark. Go ahead.
From Port Hardy?
Yeah.
Good.
Yes, I had 2 questions. The first one is what happens to all these cars that are write-offs?
The cars that are write-offs?
Yeah, that are accidents.
Yeah, most of those go into salvage dispositions for, you know, if they're like 3 years old, 2
Let me
years
ask
old
him
or
why.
something.
Why do you ask that
Yeah.
question? We haven't even been talking about write-off or salvage cars or spare parts or bits and pieces.
Yeah, for the simple reason is, okay, that some of these cars with makes and models as write-offs, whether it be the front end or the back end, there's still other parts of the car that can be salvaged and reused. And I'm
Yes.
just wondering if...
Do you salvage cars or do you sell them to junk dealers?
No, we salvaged them. Over $7 million that in selling those write-offs last year that the corporation received.
But do you buy the spare parts back too?
Only on the older cars, you know, if there's parts, as this gentleman is suggesting, that wasn't damaged. You know, if I got a 74 model, and this is a 74 model.
Common sense. Go
Okay.
ahead, please.
Good.
Yes, Mr. Webster?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I'd like to ask Mr. Sherrell, what does he think of a supervisor claims adjuster who, when phoned, was notified of an accident and tells a person that they are at a 100% fault?
Mm-hmm.
On the telephone?
Yes, without having heard the story or seen the cars involved.
There's
in
not
the
much we can
accident.
do about that kind of call, is there?
Well, I can answer it this way, is that the adjuster is totally wrong with, as you say, without investigating. Now, if he's investigated it, not all of the cases have to be personally on scene investigated. It's very clear. There's a witness, but without talking to the person involved, they're wrong.
Ma'am, put your complaint in writing to Robbie Sherrell, ICBC,
Yes.
and I'm sure he'll answer the question, and we'll take a break.
Okay.
And now he's- Go ahead to Robbie Sherrell.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Mr. Sherrell if he could explain why I buy insurance for my vehicle, pay $300 a year. Then if I'm involved in an accident, I have to pay an additional. What's the reason for me paying my first premium in the first place? My $350 or whatever it is.
He's talking about fare.
Well, yes. Okay. Are you in the adult pleasure rating at the moment?
Yes, I am.
Pardon?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you're in that already. The idea is that we want to watch the rates of everyone, try to keep them as low as we possibly can, and then go at the person who has the accident.
That was a very good question, because this is the ideal questioner to embarrass you. Here's a man who's paying what might well be the low level of the scale.
Yep.
For which he was previously covered.
Right.
From now on, he has to pay you $300 over 3 years.
No, but hang on a minute. He would have lost his safe driving vehicle discount under the present scheme if he had had a blameworthy accident.
If the safe driving vehicle discount always equals your $300.
Well, let's see if it does. Let's just see how close that gets. This one is a little more punitive, Jack, to get the equity in it. But let's look how punitive. Your premium is how much? $300?
Approximately, yeah.
Okay, 32. My math is no good, but 32.5%. Your rate then is what? $420, I guess, right? If you lost your discount.
No, it's $90 is 30%, so we'll say it's $95, so it's $395.
Right. Okay, let's just say $90. $90. All right, so you're going to lose $90 there. The next year, you'll lose about $60. The next year, about $30. And then the next year, you're back up even again under our present scheme, right?
Right.
Okay, so you add that up and compare it to $300, and that gives you the kind of relationship that you're in.
An excellent question. The people who are presently paying the lowest rates will suffer the punishment in accidents.
Well, but look how much, Jack. They suffer nothing if they don't have an accident.
I'm not arguing quantity. I'm merely saying that's a system.
Can I make one suggestion? I
Only
think you're
for
gonna
that
find you're gonna have a lot
lowest-rated
more
class.
Hit and run.
Yes, sir. He's telling you that, as I would tell you too, that under this system you're going to have many more hits and runs.
Oh, I don't think so, Jack, because the hit and runs today under safe driving discount, first of all,
It's like the start of the scheme under the old administration. The policies were so loose and the administration was so dreadful that people were lining up their cars on the highways to burn them and collect arson money.
Well, but you've been arguing this morning just the opposite, Jack, that we don't pay what we fairly owe. Gee, what a swing that is.
No, you paid out a lot more than you should have. People were burning their cars for pleasure.
Well, yeah. Well, and that may happen tomorrow. It may start tomorrow.
But you'll investigate it properly.
Well, and we still have the investigative unit.
They weren't doing it properly in those days. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Sherrell. I'm just
Yes.
like to hear your view as to why you feel that the insurance corporation should operate as a monopoly. Traditionally, in the free enterprise society, if you're dissatisfied with either price or service, you can traditionally take your business elsewhere. Unfortunately, under this particular situation, you're locked in.
Yes.
Could you explain to me why you feel that we should operate under a system with a monopoly?
Yes, I'll be happy to, and I'll say this to start with. Mr. Webster doesn't agree with what I'm about to say. You don't have to have a monopoly. You don't have to have a government program. You don't have to have those things. You have to have those things when any private companies in an industry refuse or do not address the issues and demands of the consumer. What happened here, which happens a lot of places, is those companies did not address the whole of the unit. The result was we had facilities, assigned risk plans, you couldn't get insurance, there was all kinds of differences in there, and people said there's no bloody way. The plus that competition can't deal with is when you have a full monopoly, it becomes like a supermarket approach. You can sell your goods cheaper, you can give better service, because it comes together, and the volume then gives you cost-effective operations that you can't have if you got a
argument for a monopoly you just made.
Well, I know, but I'm trying to
Not
truthfully
socialist
answer
by
it.
any chance, are you?
No.
Beginning to sound like one.
You've said that twice. I hope I've answered you in this way, and I don't mean
I'm
just
with you,
insurance.
Robbie. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I think the old excesses of private insurance were so abhorrent in many ways that if we have a good ICBC, we're much better with a monopoly. We're agreed on that.
Well, Jack, it's not just insurance. There are other areas where private companies must address the needs.
The fact that these characters in these private insurance companies are fleeing is merely because they don't want to compete with you. Isn't
Are
that
they
right?
capable of competing?
Yeah, no, I'm putting that a different way. They don't want to compete with you.
Well, I think that's probably true.
And you've made it impossible for them to compete with you.
Jack, I've made it impossible, to use your words, from the standpoint of the service we give, the cost we have, and what we give back to our customer. They can't do that.
There is $150 million in optional coverage available for picking up by insurance companies.
Yes.
Right. You do 97% of that, don't you?
Yeah, they picked up about $13.5 million.
Well, they picked up 6% of it, or maybe 8% of it.
That's right.
And they're walking away from that deliberately because they don't want the money.
Well, I don't know why, Jack. All I know is what my performance is. And I know what it is compared to what others' performance is.
Have you got your legislation and your regulations and all your cost actuarial studies done for FAIR?
Oh, yes.
Have you given a copy of these to the private insurance companies?
Jack, I've sat down with the private companies and went all the way through the whole program. Exactly what...
That's not an answer to my question. Have you said, come in, boys, and we'll show you all we've got so you can have a chance to compete?
Jack, let me just ask one question there. Does the Royal give their statistics to the commercial union? No. They'll argue the Green Book. You know what the Green Book is? A consolidation of everybody's figures that are not made public to anyone.
My answer to your question is no. The Royal does not give the Continental Union their Green Book. It tells them nothing.
That's right. And
But
I don't give them my figures.
That's what I wanted to know. Even though you are a crown corporation with, in effect, a monopoly, you have not given the private insurance companies any firm basis on which they could judge a competitive rate.
That is not true, Jack. They know how many vehicles are here, I've told them. They know what our premiums are, I've told them. They know what our claims are, I've told them. I tell everyone. You look at our annual report, it's 10 times more detailed than any other competitor I've got.
How much do you lose on your optional coverage?
I didn't. I haven't in 3 years.
I thought it was your compulsory that made you the odd dollar.
Oh, no. Jack, the compulsory are where the injuries
Were
all
the
are.
private companies making money on their optional coverage?
Were they? I don't know.
No spies tell you anything at all.
Well, but that's spy work.
Well, you've ICBC.
I don't know. I don't know.
You're
I
good.
can tell you what our performance is.
You're certainly good at the spying business. You've got to be to protect my dollar. I don't want any artificial gimps getting $100,000
Right.
settlement. Go ahead, please. I mean phony. I apologize for that. Phony people pretending phony interviews.
Yep.
And injuries. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Sherrell,
Yes?
is there any way that a person can be compensated for the depreciation that accrues as a result of a completely blame-free accident?
Well,
I missed that, Robbie.
yeah.
What did you say?
Well, he's wondering about depreciation. Is there a way that on your car, such as we do in homes, I suppose you're talking about, like with couches and so on. There's a lot of debate on that, Jack. Which is the most equitable way to spend the premium dollar? Because in effect, that's what you're doing. If you had a car that you've used for 5 years, say, and the depreciation, and say the car is going to last 10 years or 15 years or what have you, and you take a 30% depreciation. The question that you're asking is, why take any at all, or should you pay for the use that you've received of that product? Now, you know, we're looking at ways to deal with that. We believe that tires and batteries and possibly convertible tops are 3 areas that I just don't see how you can waive any kind of depreciation.
Now,
When you get to the 10, then that may be a little different way, and we may be able to eventually say we can waive the depreciation.
I'm sorry,
on
I
the
must
10.
go on that note because I want to take this call from Cranbrook. Go ahead, please.
Yes. I got a question for him. What I got to say is my sister was in an accident. It was fatal, and what happened was she was killed, and the person that was driving the car was seriously injured, and there was one girl. She was out of the accident with no bruises at all or anything, and then my parents went to see what they could do to get something out of the claim, and they couldn't get a thing.
How old was she?
Called it no-fault insurance. What is this no-fault?
How old was she? How old was your sister?
She was 19.
And you're saying they got absolutely zero?
That's right.
You get funeral benefits.
No, there's something wrong somewhere. Again, let us look at
Let's
your specific claim.
take that in detail off the air, Linda, because the chap obviously has a genuine concern, and I want to.
Yes.
Don't want to brush him
Yes.
off as
No,
if we're
that's-
being
no,
callous
that's good.
about his sister.
Right.
Okay, that's from Cranbrook. I've got 1 minute. Go ahead, please.
I believe I'm one of the 7 that complained to Mr. Sherrell last month. If a person has converted a vehicle into a motorhome, how does one go about getting an adequate settlement in the event of a loss? Now, we put over $10,000 into a motorhome because it is an old school bus that was converted.
And is it burned down?
Yes, it was. It was destroyed by fire.
The answer to start with, you have to have special coverages for those, and the auto plan booklet shows what that is. You get the special coverages, and the claim is handled on the basis of the damage.
My thanks to Robbie Sherrell of ICBC. Quite a morning. We may have helped to clear up some of the confusion in the minds of the listeners, because
Yes, I
I still
think
have
so,
Jess
Jack.
Odom's
I think
story
so.
in my mind. After this message.
Okay, now you just leave that with me. That's all I need, and I will. We will have somebody from ICBC get in touch with you.
No problem. Be on the phone when you come up, Linda.
On the phone, Linda, when we come up.
Just.
Linda will be on the phone when you come up.
You can't talk to him because you're on the phone. Tomorrow, Linda?
Tomorrow we have Hannah Holloway from the International Year of the Child Commission.
We're going to start with a tragic story.
Very tragic.
Involving a child.
That's right.
And a mother. And
Missing
a warrant.
children.
That'll be a good story. Well, back to your lush offices on the 33rd floor of the Royal Bank Centre in downtown Vancouver.
Good cheap rates there, Jack.
The man with the best, oh, don't give me that. The man with the best view in British Columbia. Did you ever get time to look out the window?
Not too often.
You ever feel like jumping out the window?
Oh, yes.
My thanks to one and all.
Fine, thank you.
Is fair? The 5 years before you know. But keep tuned. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. precisely.